Before you listen to this message, I want you to think of one situation in your life you stayed in for far too long. A situation that drained you, changed you, left you feeling smaller than you once were. Hold that memory for a moment, because this video is going to show you why you stayed and why it felt impossible to walk away. And once you understand this, you'll never see your decisions the same way again. So let's begin. There is a psychological trap almost every human falls into, a trap so subtle, so deeply wired into our brains that we don't even notice it's slowly closing around us. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. And whether you realize it or not, it's one of the biggest reasons you stay in situations that hurt you. Relationships, friendships, jobs, dreams that no longer fit who you are. Lives that feel too heavy to carry. The sunk cost fallacy doesn't just trap you. It convinces you that staying is noble. That staying makes your pain meaningful. That walking away means everything you invested was for nothing, and so you stay. Not because it's right, but because you're terrified of admitting you've already lost too much. Imagine you bought a ticket to a movie. You sit down, the lights dim, the movie starts, and it's terrible. The story makes no sense. The acting is bad. The experience is disappointing. You could leave, but most people don't, not because they're enjoying it, but because they already paid for it, even though the money is already gone. Even though staying only wastes more time, your brain creates a story. I need to finish. I need to get something out of this. But here's the truth. You don't get the money back by staying. You only lose more time. That's the sunk cost fallacy at its simplest. Now imagine that same trap, but applied to years of your life. Not a movie, but a relationship, a career, a dream, a version of yourself you feel obligated to protect. Suddenly, the trap is no longer harmless. Suddenly, the trap is your entire life. Think about the situations you've held on to. Something you knew wasn't good for you anymore. Something that chipped away at you. Something that took more than it gave. Maybe it was a relationship where you were always the one trying. Always the one giving. Always the one hoping. Maybe it was a job that drained you until you forgot what passion even felt like. Maybe it was a goal you chose years ago, but no longer recognize yourself in. And each time you thought of leaving, a voice inside whispered, "I've already put in so much time. I've already sacrificed too much. I can't just throw it all away. If I leave now, everything I gave will mean nothing." But that voice wasn't wisdom. It wasn't loyalty. It wasn't love. It was fear. Fear disguised as commitment. Fear disguised as hope. Fear disguised as responsibility. The sunk cost fallacy thrives on emotional investments. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. Pieces of yourself cannot. Memories cannot. So when you invest years into something, your brain refuses to let go. It tells you to stay, so you, Dan T., have to face the pain of admitting the truth. You stayed far longer than you should have, and that hurts. More than most people are willing to admit, because leaving doesn't just mean walking away. It means accepting that the past is gone. It means accepting that the version of you who stayed didn't know better, or hoped too hard, or cared too deeply. And that's painful. So instead of facing that pain, you keep investing. You pour more of yourself in. You sacrifice more time, more emotion, more pieces of your mental health, hoping that one day the return will justify the loss, but it rarely does. There comes a moment when something inside you begins to break. A moment when the excuses don't feel real anymore. A moment when the hope feels thin, fragile, like it's barely holding the situation together. You wake up one day and realize you're not the same person you were when you started. You've become tired, smaller, quieter inside, and for the first time, you hear a different voice. A quieter one, a gentle one. Maybe I'm allowed to walk away. You don't act on it yet. Most people don't, Before anyone leaves, they go through a long internal battle, a grieving process. You don't grieve the situation. You grieve the time you invested, the dreams you once attached to it, the version of you who believed it would work. You grieve the future you imagined. And grief takes time. But eventually, something shifts. Staying hurts more than leaving. The fear of loss becomes smaller than the cost of staying, and that's when you begin to wake up. Here is the truth most people never learn. The value of a situation has nothing to do with what you've already given. It has everything to do with what it will give you from this point forward. The past is already spent, already written, already unchangeable, but the future is still yours. And every day you stay in something that drains you, you lose more of that future. You lose opportunities. You lose growth. You lose peace. You lose yourself. Walking away does not erase the past, simply stops the past from stealing your future. So now, let me ask you the most important question of this entire message. If nothing changes, if everything stays exactly as it is right now, would you still choose to stay? Not what if it gets better. Not what if they change. Not what if I try harder. But as it is, right now. If this is the reality. Is it enough? If the answer is no, then every day you stay is not commitment. It is fear. And fear is not a good enough reason to sacrifice your life. Your life is not a debt you owe to your past decisions. Your life is something you actively shape with your future ones. You do not stay because it's right. You stay because you're afraid of the cost of leaving. But that cost is temporary. The cost of staying is permanent. Leaving is not failure. It is clarity. It is courage. It is choosing yourself. And the moment you walk away, you may not feel relief immediately. Most people don't. At first, you feel fear, then sadness, then emptiness. But eventually, the quiet sense of peace begins to grow. You start breathing differently. You start thinking differently. You start feeling alive again. You realize that leaving was not the loss. Staying was. You weren't leaving the life you wanted. You were leaving the life that kept you from finding it. And that, right there, is the beginning of your healing. So if this message reached you, if even one sentence felt like I was speaking directly to your situation, then listen carefully. You owe the past nothing, but you owe your future everything. You deserve peace. You deserve growth. You deserve space to become the person you were meant to be. And you cannot do that in a place that no longer supports your evolution. Your future is waiting. And it's time to stop keeping it waiting. If you want more content like this, more psychological breakdowns, more deep truths about the mind, more guidance on emotions, patterns, and self-awareness, make sure you subscribe, not for me, but because the journey you're on is one you shouldn't walk alone. You're growing, you're awakening. You're becoming conscious, and you deserve every insight that will help you move forward. Your next chapter starts now.